Officer Sarah was the best K-9 officer in the whole state. Everyone knew it. She was brave, smart, and always ready to help. But one day, something terrible happened. Sarah was accused of a crime she didn't commit. It was a robbery gone wrong, and somehow all the fingers pointed at her. Even though she swore she was innocent, the evidence looked bad. People she thought were her friends turned their backs on her. It felt like a nightmare. The trial was fast and unfair. The lawyers didn't seem to care about finding the truth. They just wanted to find someone to blame. Sarah sat in the courtroom, her heart pounding as the jury read the verdict. Guilty. A gasp filled the room. Sarah couldn't believe it. She was sentenced to death. The world seemed to spin around her as the guards led her away. Her life, which had been filled with purpose and joy, was now a dark and scary place. But even in this dark time, one thing gave Sarah a little bit of hope: Max, her German shepherd. He was more than just a dog, he was her partner, her friend, and her family. She knew, somehow, Max would never give up on her. The crime that Sarah was accused of was a bank robbery. But it wasn't just any bank robbery, it was one that had gone terribly wrong. The robbers had gotten away with a lot of money, but a security guard had been seriously hurt. The police worked hard to find the criminals, and they thought they had their person in Sarah. The problem was that Sarah had been at the bank earlier that day doing a routine security check with Max. Someone saw her there, and they mistakenly thought she was involved in the robbery. The real robbers were still out there, laughing, never imagining Sarah was taking the fall. They had carefully planned everything, making sure to leave no trace. But they didn't know about Max. Sarah was in jail, feeling hopeless. She kept replaying the day of the robbery in her head, trying to figure out how things had gone so wrong. She remembered walking through the bank, Max sniffing around. Everything seemed normal. Now she knew someone had been watching her, setting her up. She had to find a way to clear her name, not just for herself, but for Max too. He didn't deserve this. The trial was a blur of shouting and confusion. Sarah's lawyer seemed overwhelmed, unable to counter the prosecution's claims. They presented grainy security footage that appeared to show someone who looked like Sarah near the bank around the time of the robbery. But it was blurry, and anyone could have been mistaken for her. The prosecution focused on the fact that Sarah was a police officer, suggesting she had inside knowledge of the bank's security systems. They brought up Sarah's financial records, pointing to a recent, large deposit into her account. It looked suspicious, even though Sarah explained it was from selling her grandmother's house. Witnesses were called who claimed they saw Sarah acting suspiciously near the bank. But their stories didn't quite line up, and some seemed unsure of their own memories. Still, the damage was done. The jury saw Sarah as a crooked cop, someone who had betrayed their trust. Sarah tried to speak, to plead her case, but she was cut off. The judge seemed impatient, eager to move on. It was clear that no one believed her. The trial felt like a play, and she was just a character being led to her doom. All she could think about was Max, alone and waiting for her. The words guilty echoed in Sarah's ears, each syllable a hammer blow. The judge, his face grim, pronounced the sentence, death. A collective gasp swept through the courtroom, but Sarah felt numb. It was like watching a movie about someone else's life. She was led away in handcuffs, her vision blurring with tears. The faces of the people she had sworn to protect swam before her, now twisted with anger and disappointment. How could they believe she was capable of such a thing? As she was processed into prison, the reality of her situation began to sink in. The cold, steel bars, the rough uniforms, the stares of the other inmates, it was all too real. She was trapped, her life slipping away. That night, lying on a thin mattress in a dark cell, Sarah felt utterly alone. The weight of the world pressed down on her. She closed her eyes, picturing Max. His warm fur, his wet nose, his unwavering loyalty. He was her only hope now. She whispered his name into the darkness, praying that somehow he would understand. That somehow he would find a way to save her. The thought of him gave her the strength to face another day. Max was a magnificent German shepherd, strong and intelligent. He had a thick, black and tan coat, and his eyes were bright and full of life. But more than his physical attributes, it was his loyalty that set him apart. He and Sarah were inseparable. They had been partners for 5 years, working together to keep the city safe. Max was trained to sniff out drugs, track suspects, and protect Sarah in dangerous situations. He was fearless, always ready to put himself in harm's way for her. Their bond went beyond just work. Sarah had rescued Max from a shelter when he was just a puppy. He had been abused and neglected, and Sarah had nursed him back to health. From that moment on, Max had been devoted to her. They spent their days patrolling the city, their evenings relaxing at home. Sarah would often tell Max about her day and he would listen intently, his head cocked to one side. He seemed to understand everything she said. Now Sarah was gone and Max was lost without her. He was kept in the police kennel, but he refused to eat or play. He just sat by the gate, whining and waiting for Sarah to come back. He didn't understand why she had left, but he knew deep down that something was terribly wrong. He missed her smell, her touch, her voice. He missed his best friend. He was determined to find her no matter what. Days turned into weeks and Max's condition worsened. He barely touched his food and his once bright eyes were now dull and listless. The other K-9 officers tried to comfort him, but nothing seemed to work. He would just lie in his kennel, his nose pressed against the bars, whimpering softly. He would perk up whenever he heard a car approaching, hoping it was Sarah. But each time his hopes were dashed. He started losing weight and his fur began to lose its shine. The kennel staff worried about him. They knew he was grieving and they didn't know how to help him. One of the kennel workers, a young woman named Emily, felt especially sorry for Max. She had always admired Sarah and Max's partnership and she couldn't believe that Sarah was capable of committing such a crime. She spent extra time with Max, talking to him and petting him, trying to reassure him that everything would be all right. Emily noticed that Max would often sniff at Sarah's old vest, which they had kept in his kennel. He would bury his nose in it and inhale deeply, as if trying to remember her scent. It was clear that he missed her terribly. Emily began to wonder if there was something she could do to help Max find Sarah and prove her innocence. An idea started to form in her mind. Meanwhile, Sarah's appeals were denied, one after another. Each rejection was like a punch to the gut, leaving her breathless and defeated. Her execution date was set, a date that loomed over her like a dark cloud. She spent her days writing letters to Max, pouring out her heart onto the page. She told him how much she loved him, how much she missed him, and how sorry she was that she had to leave him. She asked him to be brave, to be strong, and to never forget her. But she knew that letters were not enough. She longed to see him one last time, to feel his warm fur against her skin, to hear his comforting bark. But visits were denied, deemed too risky. They feared she might try to escape with Max's help. Despair settled over Sarah like a shroud. She began to lose hope, wondering if she would ever see the light of day again. She thought of Max, alone and grieving, and her heart ached. She couldn't bear the thought of him suffering. She knew she had to do something, anything, to give him a chance at a better life. But what could she do from behind bars? Her only hope now rested on Max himself. He was her last chance at freedom. He had to do something unthinkable. Emily watched Max closely. She saw the intelligence in his eyes, the determination in his posture, even in his grief. She knew he was more than just a dog, he was a partner, a protector, and a friend. She also noticed something else. Max was incredibly observant. One day, while cleaning the kennel, Emily accidentally dropped a set of keys. Max watched intently as she bent down to pick them up. Then, a few days later, she saw him trying to reach the keys through the bars of his kennel, mimicking her movements. It was then that Emily knew Max was smart enough to understand a plan. She started spending more time with him, showing him pictures of Sarah, pointing to places on a map, and whispering instructions. She knew it was a long shot, but she had to try. She couldn't let Sarah die for a crime she didn't commit. Emily started to confide in another guard, an older man named Robert who had worked with Sarah and Max for years. Robert was skeptical at first, but he trusted Emily's judgment. He had also seen Max's loyalty firsthand. Together, they decided to take a big risk, to help Max escape and find the evidence that would clear Sarah's name. They knew it was dangerous, but they were willing to do anything to save their friend. The plan was risky and complicated. Robert managed to get a copy of the key to Max's kennel. Emily, using Sarah's vest, would lead Max to a specific location outside the city, a place where Sarah had often taken him for training exercises. There, they hoped Max's tracking skills would kick in, leading him to the real robbers. Robert would create a distraction at the kennel, making it easier for Emily and Max to slip away unnoticed. They knew they had to be quick and careful. If they were caught, they would face serious consequences. The night of the escape was dark and stormy. The rain poured down and the wind howled, creating the perfect cover for their operation. Robert created a diversion by faking a medical emergency, drawing the other guards away from the kennel area. Emily, her heart pounding, quietly opened Max's kennel. He looked up at her, his eyes filled with a mixture of hope and confusion. She put Sarah's vest on him and whispered, "Find Sarah, Max, find Sarah." Max seemed to understand. He nudged her hand with his nose and then, with a burst of energy, he ran out of the kennel, following Emily into the stormy night. Their journey had begun. The unthinkable was about to happen. The escape was just the beginning. Emily drove Max to the training grounds, a familiar place where Sarah's scent was strong. She took the vest off him and pointed in a specific direction. "Find them, Max, find the bad guys," she urged. Max sniffed the ground, his nose twitching, his tail wagging tentatively. He picked up a scent, a faint trace of something unfamiliar. He looked at Emily as if asking for confirmation. She nodded encouragingly. With a determined bark, Max took off into the woods, his powerful legs carrying him swiftly through the undergrowth. Emily followed behind, struggling to keep up. The rain made the ground slippery and the trees were dense, but she refused to give up. They tracked for hours, the scent growing stronger with each step. Max led them through thick forests, across rushing streams, and over rocky hills. He was tireless, driven by his unwavering loyalty to Sarah. As they got closer to their destination, Emily began to hear voices. She slowed down, cautioning Max to be quiet. They crept through the trees until they reached a clearing. There, in a small cabin, they saw them, the real bank robbers, counting their stolen money. Max had found them. Now, the real challenge began. Getting the evidence they needed to clear Sarah's name. Emily knew they couldn't just burst into the cabin. They needed proof. She remembered Sarah telling her about a hidden compartment in the getaway car, where the robbers had stashed the security guard's stolen badge. If they could find that badge, it would be undeniable evidence of their guilt. She whispered her plan to Max. She would distract the robbers while Max searched the area for the car. He understood immediately. With a nod, she stepped out of the trees and into the clearing. "Hey!" she shouted. "Police! Freeze!" The robbers were startled. They jumped up, grabbing their guns. Max, taking advantage of the chaos, slipped silently into the woods, his nose to the ground, searching for the scent of the car. Emily tried to stall them, asking questions, pretending to be in charge. But she knew she couldn't hold them for long. Max had to find that car, and he had to find it fast. Time seemed to slow down. Emily could hear Max barking in the distance. He had found it. She knew she had to get to him, but the robbers were getting suspicious. They were starting to realize she was alone. One of them raised his gun. Suddenly, Max burst out of the woods, the security guard's badge clutched in his mouth. He ran straight towards Emily, dodging bullets, his eyes fixed on her. He dropped the badge at her feet, just as the robbers opened fire. Emily threw herself to the ground, shielding Max from the gunfire. The robbers, realizing they had been outsmarted, jumped into their car and sped away. Emily, bruised but unharmed, grabbed the badge and called for backup. The police arrived quickly, sirens blaring, and apprehended the robbers after a short chase. The security guard's badge was irrefutable proof of their guilt. Emily explained everything to the officers, showing them the map and the pictures she had used to communicate with Max. At first, they were skeptical, but Max's actions spoke for themselves. They had never seen such a loyal and intelligent dog. They contacted the district attorney, presenting the evidence and explaining the circumstances. The district attorney, initially hesitant, was swayed by the overwhelming evidence and the compelling story of Max's unwavering loyalty. He agreed to reopen Sarah's case. Meanwhile, Sarah sat in her cell, her hope dwindling with each passing hour. She had heard the sirens in the distance, but she didn't dare to believe that anything had changed. She closed her eyes, picturing Max, wondering if he was safe. She prayed that he was happy even without her. Then she heard the sound of footsteps approaching her cell. She looked up, her heart pounding. It was the warden, his face unusually grim. "Officer Sarah," he said, "you're free to go." Sarah didn't understand. "What happened?" she asked, her voice trembling. The warden smiled. "It's a long story, officer. But let's just say a very good dog did something extraordinary." He led her out of her cell and through the prison corridors. As they approached the front entrance, Sarah saw a familiar figure waiting for her. It was Emily, her face beaming. And next to her, tail wagging furiously, was Max. Sarah gasped. Tears streamed down her face as she ran towards him. "Max," she cried, dropping to her knees and wrapping her arms around him. He licked her face, his whole body shaking with joy. "You did it, boy," she whispered, burying her face in his fur. "You saved me." Emily explained everything, from Max's escape to his incredible tracking skills to his bravery in the face of danger. Sarah listened in disbelief, her heart overflowing with gratitude. She couldn't believe that Max had done all of this for her. The news of Sarah's exoneration spread quickly. She was hailed as a hero, a victim of a terrible injustice. But Sarah knew that the real hero was Max. He had done the unthinkable, proving that loyalty and love could overcome any obstacle. As Sarah hugged Max tightly, she knew that their bond was unbreakable. They had been through hell and back together, and their love for each other had only grown stronger. They were finally home together, and they were ready to face whatever the future held, side by side. Life slowly returned to normal. Sarah and Max were back on patrol, keeping the city safe. The community welcomed them with open arms, grateful for their service and touched by their incredible story. Emily and Robert were commended for their bravery and quick thinking. They were hailed as heroes for their role in uncovering the truth and saving Sarah's life. They were just happy that justice had been served. The real robbers were sentenced to long prison terms, finally paying for their crimes. The security guard who had been injured in the robbery made a full recovery thanks to Sarah and Max's efforts. Sarah often visited Max's old kennel, remembering the dark days when she thought she would never see him again. She was grateful for every moment they had together, knowing that their bond was something special, something unbreakable. One day, while patrolling near the bank, Max suddenly stopped, his nose twitching. He started barking excitedly, pulling Sarah towards a nearby alley. Sarah hesitated, unsure what he had found. But she trusted Max implicitly. She followed him into the alley, and there, hidden behind a dumpster, she saw a small, worn-out teddy bear. It was the security guard's granddaughter's favorite toy, a toy that had been missing since the day of the robbery. It was another piece of evidence, a reminder of the human cost of crime and a testament to Max's unwavering dedication. Sarah smiled, knowing that Max would always be there to protect and serve, no matter what. He was her partner, her friend, her hero. The discovery of the teddy bear served as a happy epilogue to the story, but during the critical time when Sarah was awaiting execution, Max's journey was fraught with peril. After finding the robbers and the badge, Emily knew she had to get to the prison immediately. Sarah's execution was scheduled for midnight, and it was already late afternoon. They raced back to the city, Emily driving as fast as she could, Max panting in the back seat. Every minute felt like an eternity. They were miles away from the prison, and traffic was heavy. Emily weaved through the cars, honking her horn, desperate to reach Sarah in time. Meanwhile, Robert was doing everything he could to delay the execution. He argued with the warden, stalling for time, claiming there were new developments in the case. But the warden was unmoved. He had his orders, and he was determined to carry them out. Sarah was being prepared for execution. Her head was shaved, and she was dressed in a plain white gown. She was led to the execution chamber, her heart filled with dread. She closed her eyes, picturing Max, hoping that somehow he would know that she loved him. As the clock ticked closer to midnight, Emily and Max were still miles away, stuck in traffic. Emily looked at Max, his eyes filled with worry. She knew that if they didn't reach the prison soon, it would be too late. She had to do something drastic. She pulled over to the side of the road. "I need your help, boy," she said to Max. "You have to run. Run to Sarah." Max seemed to understand the urgency. He leaped out of the car and onto the road, his powerful legs pumping as he ran towards the city. Emily watched him go, tears streaming down her face. "Save her, Max," she whispered. Max raced through the streets, dodging cars, weaving through crowds, his eyes fixed on the prison in the distance. He ran with a single-minded determination fueled by his love for Sarah. But someone had seen him leaving the car. A police officer, alerted to Max's escape, recognized him and gave chase. He radioed for backup, and soon several police cars were speeding after Max, sirens blaring. Max didn't stop. He jumped over fences, ran through parks, and navigated the busy streets, his K-9 training kicking in. He was faster and more agile than the police cars, but they were closing in. The chase was on. The entire city watched in amazement as a German shepherd raced through the streets, pursued by a fleet of police cars. News helicopters circled overhead, broadcasting the chase live on television. Everyone knew what was at stake. Sarah's life hung in the balance. As Max neared the prison, he could hear the clock tower chiming. It was almost midnight. He had to get there in time. He ran faster than he had ever run before, his heart pounding, his lungs burning. He could see the prison gates in the distance. He was almost there. Just as the guards were leading Sarah into the execution chamber, Max burst through the prison gates, dodging the police cars that were hot on his heels. He ran straight towards the execution chamber, barking furiously, his eyes wild with desperation. The guards, startled by the commotion, stopped in their tracks. Robert, seeing his opportunity, grabbed the badge from one of the officers and ran towards the warden. "Stop the execution," he shouted. "We have proof that Sarah is innocent." The warden hesitated, unsure what to do. But the sight of Max, barking and clawing at the door of the execution chamber, gave him pause. He had never seen such a loyal and determined dog. The clock tower began to chime midnight. The sound echoed through the prison, sending chills down everyone's spines. It was now or never. Robert reached the warden, shoving the badge into his hands. "This is the security guard's badge," he said, breathless. "It was found in the robber's getaway car. It proves that Sarah was framed." The warden looked at the badge, then at Sarah, then at Max, who was still barking and clawing at the door. He knew that he had a decision to make, a decision that could mean the difference between life and death. He took a deep breath and shouted, "Stop the execution." The guards froze. The executioner lowered his hand. Sarah stood in the execution chamber, her heart pounding, unsure if she was dreaming. Then, she heard Max barking, and she knew that he had done it. He had saved her. The warden, holding the badge, looked around at the chaos that had erupted. The police officers were arguing. The guards were confused, and Sarah stood frozen in the execution chamber, her face pale with shock. Only Max seemed to know what to do, continuing to bark and claw at the door, his eyes fixed on Sarah. The warden knew he had to restore order. He raised his voice, silencing the crowd. "Officer Miller," he said, addressing one of the senior officers, "take Officer Robert into custody, and someone get a vet to check on that dog." Then he turned to Sarah. "Officer Sarah, I'm going to need you to come with me. We need to verify this evidence." Sarah, still in her white gown, was led away from the execution chamber, Max following close behind. They were taken to the warden's office, where the badge was examined. It was indeed the security guard's badge, and it was covered in the robber's fingerprints. The warden called the district attorney, explaining the situation. The district attorney, who had been watching the chase on television, was stunned. He ordered an immediate investigation. Within hours, the truth was revealed. The real robbers confessed to the crime, admitting that they had framed Sarah. They had planted evidence, bribed witnesses, and manipulated the system to make her look guilty. Sarah was completely exonerated. The charges against her were dropped, and she was declared innocent. She was finally free. Sarah walked out of the prison gates a free woman, the weight of the world lifted from her shoulders. The sun was rising, casting a golden glow over the city. It was a new day, a new beginning. Waiting for her outside were Emily and Robert, their faces filled with joy. They ran towards her, embracing her tightly. "You're free, Sarah," Emily cried. "You're finally free." But Sarah's eyes were fixed on Max, who was wagging his tail and barking excitedly. She knelt down and wrapped her arms around him, burying her face in his fur. "Thank you, Max," she whispered. "Thank you for everything." The reunion was captured by news cameras and broadcast around the world. People were touched by the story of Sarah and Max's unwavering loyalty, their unbreakable bond. They were hailed as heroes, symbols of hope and justice. The district attorney apologized publicly for the mistake, promising to review the case and ensure that such a miscarriage of justice never happened again. The city council voted to award Max a Medal of Honor, recognizing his bravery and intelligence. Sarah and Max were back together, stronger than ever. They had faced the darkest of times, but their love for each other had pulled them through. They were a team, a partnership, a family, and they were ready to face whatever the future held, side by side. They knew, without a doubt, that their bond was unbreakable. It was a love story for the ages. Back at the police station, Sarah and Max were greeted with a hero's welcome. Their colleagues cheered and applauded, showering them with praise and affection. Max, enjoying the attention, wagged his tail and licked everyone who came near him. The city council held a special ceremony to honor Sarah and Max. They presented Sarah with a key to the city and awarded Max the Medal of Honor, a symbol of his extraordinary bravery and loyalty. During the ceremony, Sarah spoke about her experience, thanking everyone who had supported her and Max through the darkest of times. She praised Emily and Robert for their courage and dedication, and she thanked Max for his unwavering love and loyalty. "Max is more than just a dog," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "He's my partner, my friend, my family. He's the bravest and most loyal creature I know. He's proven that love can conquer anything, even injustice. Max, standing proudly by her side, barked in agreement as if understanding every word she said. The crowd erupted in applause, touched by their incredible bond. From that day forward, Sarah and Max became legends. Their story was told and retold, inspiring people around the world. They were a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope and that love and loyalty can overcome any obstacle. They showed everyone that sometimes the most unexpected heroes can come in the most unexpected packages. Their legacy would live on forever. With their lives back on track, Sarah and Max returned to the K-9 unit, ready to serve and protect their community once more. Their experience had made them even stronger, their bond even deeper. They continued to work together, solving crimes, rescuing victims, and bringing justice to those who had been wronged. They became known throughout the state as the ultimate K-9 team, a force to be reckoned with. Emily and Robert were also recognized for their bravery and dedication. They were promoted within the police department, given more responsibilities and opportunities to make a difference. The city implemented new policies to ensure that all evidence was thoroughly reviewed and that no one was wrongly accused again. Sarah's case became a symbol of the importance of justice and fairness. The real robbers were brought to justice, sentenced to long prison terms for their crimes. They were finally held accountable for their actions, and the security guard who had been injured in the robbery was able to find peace. Sarah and Max continued to inspire people around the world with their story of love, loyalty, and courage. They showed everyone that even in the face of adversity, anything is possible. They were a true testament to the power of the human-animal bond, a reminder that sometimes the greatest heroes come in the most unexpected forms. Their legacy of justice would live on forever, inspiring generations to come. They had truly done the unthinkable. And so, the tale of Officer Sarah and Max, the German shepherd who did the unthinkable, became a timeless story of love, loyalty, and courage. It was a story that reminded everyone that even in the face of injustice, hope can prevail. Sarah and Max continued their work with the K-9 unit, their bond serving as an inspiration to all who knew them. They were a symbol of what could be achieved through unwavering dedication and unconditional love. Their story was a reminder that heroes come in many forms and that sometimes the greatest acts of bravery are performed by those we least expect. Years passed and Sarah and Max remained inseparable. They grew old together, their bond deepening with each passing day. They faced new challenges, solved countless crimes, and touched the lives of countless people. Even in their old age, they never forgot the dark days when they were separated, the days when Sarah's life hung in the balance. They cherished every moment they had together, knowing that their love was a gift, a blessing, a bond that could never be broken. And so, the legend of Officer Sarah and Max lived on, a testament to the power of the human-animal bond, a reminder that love, loyalty, and courage can conquer anything. Their story would continue to inspire generations to come, proving that even a German shepherd can do the unthinkable when driven by love. Their names would forever be etched in the annals of heroism.